Greetings, viewers! Nighthead Eye here, bringing you another review. Hey, do you remember those old cartoons called Noah and His Animals? I looked around on YouTube, and I found a few clips to last for a few minutes. Noah and His Animals, and its sequel to movies, was basically an animated series about the Noah's Ark story, but the movies themselves focused mainly on the animals. The main characters were a self-conscious lion, a rather confident and hardy polar bear, and a cantankerous crocodile who was more or less the lion's rival for the first two movies. While I feel these movies haven't aged well at all, I would still rather show them to my niece and nephews than what I'll be reviewing today. Okay, so this movie is called Noah's Ark. Real creative name, right? It was produced by an Argentinian film group in 2007 and distributed by a branch of Walt Disney Studios. I was asked to review this movie by a friend who thought she was getting a harmless little family-friendly movie for her son, but then she saw this. After that, she took the movie out and wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible. And who could blame her, really? She is far from the first person to be outraged by this movie, however. Since a lot of people thought they were buying what was the classic story of Noah's Ark with talking animals, only to find out that what they bought wasn't exactly what they bargained for. Go on to Amazon and I'm sure you'll find some pretty interesting reviews there, ranging from saying VeggieTales is a far better religious cartoon, how this movie isn't historically accurate, no really, to... yeah, we'll get there when we get there. Before I actually start the review, I have a bit of a story to tell. Getting my hands on this movie was a lot of trouble, and after having watched it, I feel it was more trouble than it was worth. Like I said, this movie was made in Argentina, and it's next to impossible to find an English dub of the movie that isn't a clip that lasts anywhere between a few seconds to a full minute. I actually had to go onto Amazon and pay for this movie, and when it arrived, I had to convert the file and download it onto my PC. After having done that, the picture was either a blurry mess, or would clip scenes into each other until I finally got what I needed for this video. It's like the movie knows it's so bad. It was actively trying to sabotage my efforts to make this review. Originally, I asked Saberspark for his file of the movie on Twitter after he'd done his review of it, but I didn't hear back from him. So thanks, Saber. You made me go through tons of pain just so I could hurt myself further by watching this. You orange shirt wearing noseless jerk.
Disclaimer, I have nothing against Saberspark, and I am in fact a fan of his content. This was in no way meant to be an attack against Saberspark. If you are in my viewing audience, please do not go off your way to hassle this man over a joke.
One last thing before we actually start. See this scene? Yeah, it really has nothing to do with the movie itself. I guess the only way they could tie it to the rest of the movie is that we see the baboon in the next scene. We also see that the other animals from that scene are presumably dead, and the guy who fought with the baboon is sold into slavery. Also, if this is meant to be in biblical times, why is there a big game hunter here? So the very first characters we meet in this movie are God and one of his angels, discussing how the world's gone to pot in the marketplace. God's decided to flood the entire planet and start all over again, whereas his angel has some reservations. That is, until someone supposedly stole his medallion and he curses them all for being sinful.
My medallion! Who stole my medallion? You heard of soulless evildoers? Great balls of fire and terrifying lightning bolts shall rain from the heavens, and you will cringe with fear in the deep, dark halls of hell!
Everyone but Noah and his family seem to be irredeemably wicked, especially a moneylender named Farin and his wife Esther, who love keeping Noah in debt to them. Now, while most of the human characters are okay, these two look cartoonish for the sake of looking cartoonish, especially Farin, who's super short and Green? Why is he green? No other human character is green in this movie, and this just makes it look like he hasn't bathed in years. While heading home, Noah's sons complain that no matter how hard they work, they make less and less each year, and how barren their fields have become. Noah, however, tells them that they need to continue to have faith in each other, and to hold on to their family bonds. This is kind of Noah's shtick, which, while he isn't a bad character, he is also kind of one note. At the very least, Noah and his wife are among the few characters I can actually tolerate. The speech seems to comfort his sons, but their wives...
What do you mean your father got into debt again? And to free a slave, no less?
Silence! Be quiet, enough arguing.
The time has come, my dear, for you to take charge of the family. Well, I have no doubt that you are the most capable of all the sons.
The most capable? Why? My son can take charge of it just as well as he can.
But Sarah, dear, it just so happens that Sam is the youngest of the three brothers.
Don't touch, that's for dinner.
If it is a question of age, Japhet is the elder.
Yeah. For whatever reason, the daughters-in-law are given a Jewish accent, a southern drawl, and the third one is British. Why? Not only do the accents not make sense for the time period, the wives are incredibly annoying characters to listen to. Especially Sarah, the one with the Yiddish accent, who is seen the most often, and is very often complaining. Because, you know, Jewish women do nothing but complain. Really, I don't think it would be that bad if the actor hadn't made her voice so nasal and obnoxious to listen to. This sort of goes for all of the wives, really. I have to wonder, what sort of voice direction were the actors given? And why did the director feel that women living in the biblical time period need to have exaggerated cartoony accents? Okay, so let's go over the voice acting cast, shall we? God, played by Ron Von Paulus, has a rather deep and lethargic tone, which sort of fits his design. I can't say it doesn't fit, especially since the first scene with God shows how he's grown tired of how wicked and wasteful mankind has become. Noah is voiced by Joe Carey, and I have to admit the voice is a perfect fit for the design of Noah's character. I'm unfamiliar with the other movies Joe's been in, if any, but Joe really seems to understand what tone he's meant to be going for. I can say the same for the people voicing Noah's sons, and Kay Brady, who voices Noah's wife. I already talked about Sarah, who is voiced by Lauren Lush, but let's focus on the other wives. The redheaded Miriam, who is voiced by Lisa Grossman, is meant to be the emotional one, but...
First, Noah must be dealt with. And for that, my dear Edith, we have to...
Just a minute, you're talking about my father. I won't allow you to talk that way.
Don't you dare mess with my husband.
Oh, that's all you know how to do is yell.
Yeah, just like Lauren, Lisa apparently couldn't be bothered to put effort into her performance. Really, the only one I think actually tries to put in any effort is Aubrey Chevin as Edith, since she seems to make a British accent work for an entitled woman who thinks she and her husband should be in charge, without giving a lackluster performance. Anyway, we all know what happens next. God gets in touch with Noah and tells him he intends to start a great flood.
I'm going to send a flood.
Did you say a flood?
Yes, a torrential rain that will flood everything.
I know what a flood is, Lord.
That, quite possibly, is one of the funniest jokes in this movie. It isn't overtly funny, but the back and forth between Rob and Joe does sort of work for me. God tells Noah that in order to survive the great flood, he and his family must build a great ark, gather 2 of every animal, and sail for 40 days and nights. And if they can all remain united in harmony, the world will begin anew for them. And now we get to where I feel the movie goes downhill. Like the old book says, Noah gathered a vast amount of doves, and gave to each a message to deliver to 2 of every animal that existed at the time. There's just one teeny tiny problem with this.
Fly, my little white doves, fly. Fly away, my messengers of the new world. Fly. Fly.
Free! We're finally free!
This we have to celebrate, huh? Excuse me, but isn't the jungle that way? Come on, stop worrying.
The doves would rather celebrate their freedom rather than actually do as they were commanded. The lone exception being a single white dove whose sole purpose seems to be getting physically abused for the sake of comedy. This is also the part of the movie where stuff was obviously cut out. At least if you've seen the unedited version of this movie. The scene originally had a hen dancing what was meant to be a club, and that was deemed too racy for kids, even though old cartoons had scenes like this in it. The cuts also hurt the narrative of the movie, especially when the lions come into it.
He asked me to build an ark where we shall all travel with my family together with pairs of animals to accomplish the divine design. Learn to love each other, respect one another, be just, practice solidarity. To those chosen to fulfill the Lord's will, we will meet you in the Jazeera Desert past the forest. Signed, Noah. Noah?
I want to go! Listen to me. If I'm not on that ark when it sets sail, I swear, Dad, I shall never forgive you.
This is Zero, the son of the Lion King, and I guess the fourth main character we're meant to follow next to the lioness Kyrell. And I hate him. He's basically every self-righteous loser who behaves like he's still a teen in high school, even though the character is meant to be an adult. The only reason he wants to go on the ark is because he got bits and pieces of the message in the scene that were cut, so he really doesn't understand the purpose of the voyage, and thinks that it's all just one big pleasure cruise. Why was the scene cut, you ask? Well, because it featured Bombay, an effeminate orangutan. Because being camp is bad and Christian children shouldn't be exposed to it, I guess. I mean, he does have a big mate named Lily, so it's not like he's actually gay. Anyway, the cut also hurts this scene because Zero's motivation for going is because he thinks it'll be a chance for him to get laid away from his family. Yeah, he's a womanizer too. Not that we actually get to see too much of that, because they cut out all the scenes where he's chasing tail, making his eventual change in priorities feel as if they come out of nowhere. I'm sure you've already noticed, but from here on, a lot of the animal characters have really anthropomorphic designs. Throughout the movie, you'll see animal characters like Zero and Kyrell, who are built similarly to humans. Or, in the case of the tiger character Dagnino and a fat crocodile, really exaggerated designs. Oh, and see this guy on the box cover? That's a puma. Although when I showed this to a friend on Discord, they thought the character was meant to be a bear. Anthropomorphism is a term used for giving human attributes to something that isn't human. This can include inanimate objects, vegetation, but is most often used for animals. These traits can range anywhere from animals simply talking like humans, having animals walk upright, or in the case of a lot of furry webcomics I've read, having the animals be straight up stand-ins for humans. Wearing clothes, living in houses, the whole shebang. Mankind has always been fascinated with animals, and we've always seen a bit of ourselves in them, so we like to tell stories using them as a type of avatar. Of course, when you give human attributes to something that isn't human, things can get awkward.
At first we were afraid, we were petrified, to think the world that we once knew was gone and you're what's left to carry on.
Yeah. Now, the design for Kyrell, I get. She's meant to be the female lead, but the character Panthy is meant to be as sexual as possible, so she was given a very humanoid figure with a large chest, and there are a few scenes where she's attempting to seduce Zero. But, like with the scenes where Zero is looking for sex and nothing else from a mate, the introduction of Panthy was more or less cut. It's honestly a shame, since her song, I Want to Live, is Panthy expressing her desire to eat the weaker animals, and the joke being that she's too sexy for anyone to really listen to what she's saying. Well, unless you count this pig. Is Panthy an awkward character? Yes, very very much so. But her design and character are meant to play off of Zero being a, well, I think a skirt chaser is meant to be the PC term. The king summons every type of animal to discuss the situation, and despite a unicorn, dragon, and yeti, convinced that this call is just a trap set up by human hunters, the other animals agree that in order for their species to survive, 2 of their species will board the Ark and repopulate once the new world begins. Since lions are meant to be king of all creatures, the elderly Lion King appoints his son Zero as his successor. Noah eventually finishes the Ark, and the animals arrive. It's here we see that Zero isn't cut out to be a leader. When a pig says he wants the predators to promise to not eat the herbivores, that fat crocodile I mentioned before just goes ahead and tries to eat him, and is only stopped by the tiger named Dagnino. It's Dagnino who puts an end to the conflict rather than Zero, Dagnino getting the predators to promise that they won't eat anyone. We also get this scene.
Of the Lord, welcome to our humble ark. We living beings must prove that we are able to create a just world. But we will only do this if we can learn to trust one another. This is why nothing would make me happier than for you to decide to board our ark and come along with us on this amazing adventure in peace.
As a representative...
But the rule, we aren't allowed to speak to the humans.
Why? Noah can clearly see that a good chunk of the animals are standing upright like humans, and we can see that he built the Ark with that in mind, providing beds and a cafeteria for the animals. He clearly knows that a lot of these creatures are anthropomorphic, and he designed the Ark for the animals to live similarly to humans. Also, if animals aren't allowed to talk to humans, then why is there a seat for mankind at their council? Then why did God then summon the animals himself rather than Noah? Why did Noah write messages to the animals that they would have to be sentient enough to read, when God could have simply sent the doves himself? It really just feels like the writers simply made up that rule, so the human and animal characters just wouldn't interact with each other. You may say that I'm taking this scene too seriously, but considering all the scenes that were cut out of this movie, this could have been one of them and nothing of substance would have been lost. So, due to a panic caused by an obnoxious sheep, Zero's choice of mate is crushed and Kyrell boards the Ark just as the rain begins to fall. We also see that Farfan and Esther, who accepted Noah's house as payment for the doves, now want the Ark itself after seeing it and just make it aboard. Personally, I think this is just the writers trying to make them significant characters when they don't need to be, especially since Dagnino serves just fine as the film's antagonist. Like with the weird editing choices, this is another big issue with the movie. Too many characters that don't really contribute anything. We have all of these characters, and only 6 of them feel like they actually matter. A good chunk of the side characters are named on the wiki page for this movie, but really the only side character who gets named that I can remember is a member of Dagnino's gang. Do you care about this pig? Do you care about this panda and mole? They're supposedly Zero's friends, but we never get any significant scene with any of them. There's also a parrot that used to live among humans and now shares his knowledge with the other animals. That feels slightly familiar. But we never get more than a few seconds of this character. You know, if you're going to have all these characters, actually have them be significant to the story in some way. And yes, I know the panda does play a significant role later, but we never learn his name or why he would want to help the main characters out. Seeing as how they're now going to be partners for the voyage, Kyrell and Zero are going to have to spend time together. But it's clear that Zero cares more about appearances rather than him and Kyrell being the last of their species, insinuating that she isn't physically up to his standards. Kyrell isn't so much offended that Zero doesn't find her attractive, but is annoyed that he thinks he'll be seen as a proper king based on the people he's hanging around. It's clear that he would rather be popular than actually take on any responsibility.
Tell me, what do you see?
A young, handsome lion that's full of vitality.
That's the wrong answer. What you should be seeing is a king.
But I am a king.
You will be a king when you start seeing priorities for the greater good for all concerned, when you're not only worried about appearances. Meanwhile, there are many who think you don't have what it takes to be the legitimate king.
No time for serious discussions, however. We have some scenes to chop up and protect the keys from. So the scene starts here, and transitions to Noah and his family here, before going back to the bar scene. I could be mistaken, but I feel pretty certain that the first scene with the animals in the club was cut out. Though by the time we cut away from the human characters, we see that Zero is very clearly drunk and being influenced by Panthy. Not content with just letting Zero show what an indecisive leader he is, Dagnino decides what he needs to do is undermine Zero's authority even more, despite his henchmen pointing out that Zero is clearly a fool. I can't argue with them. Now, we can clearly see that Dagnino wants to be the king of the beasts in the new world, so the obvious thing to do would just let Zero make a fool of himself, and the other animals would eventually see that he isn't fit to be a ruler. But the tiger has plans other than usurping the throne. Once the Ark arrives in the new world, Dagnino and his gang plan to capture and prepare any animal that they want to eat. And Dagnino sees Zero as the only thing that stands in his way, because the plot demands it, I guess. So what is this physically imposing tiger going to do about his rival? Use a sexy woman to undermine Zero's authority, of course.
And one of the most stimulating things about governing is to find one's capability for giving. For example, all the food is given to me for free.
Hey, your friend should learn to relax a little, you know?
Who authorized this? And I want to know now. May I ask what this is?
Well, I don't know, but given its color, I'm presuming it's mint.
Yeah, considering the other cuts I mentioned, I'm not sure why they left in a clearly drunk Zero. Though if I had to guess, I'd say so we can have a scene of Cairo getting mad at Zero for his irresponsibility, and so Zero can learn the reality of their situation.
Is this your idea of a fair government? Trying to appeal to everyone?
I'm concerned about those I love, and you should do the same. A little fun never hurt anyone. Not everything has to be done by the rules.
This is not just a pleasure trip. You should be a little worried by now. Isn't this rain telling you anything? I suppose now you'll understand that we all rely on your decisions. You are the king, the only survivor of your lineage. As far as showing concern about those I love, that's all I've done. That's all I've ever done.
You know, if the scene with him receiving the message had been cut out, this scene would actually mean something. See, this is why cutting stuff out hurts the story that this movie is trying to tell, since it paints the picture that Zero knew what was going on the whole time, and was just choosing to be a slacker, rather than him being ignorant of the reality of things, and have to change his priorities. Meanwhile, back at the stupid Farfan and Esther have finally realized that there are animals on the boat, and are completely terrified. To avoid being eaten alive, they dress themselves up as animals and call themselves grasswompers. Now, as stupid as this is, it's actually going to be important later.
Hold on, Foxwell. Didn't you say those characters weren't significant?
Well, I'm a dirty liar. The next morning, a female goose mourns over her missing husband, which Noah discovers has been taken by one of his daughter-in-laws, and intends to butcher him for food. Yeah, real good idea. Butchering one of the two last remaining animals on Earth. Fortunately, Noah saves the goose to remind Sarah that they need to ensure that the animals on the ark with them will survive the journey. Sarah and Edith, however, begin to complain about how little they have to eat rather than salad and fish, and traveling with wild animals. Sarah suggests taking control of the ark away from Noah, but Noah's wife and son seem to shut that idea down immediately. Down below, the animals have become tired, hungry, and irritable. It's now that Dagnino and his gang have decided that they will overthrow Zero and eat as many of the weaker animals as they want before the journey is over. Just as soon as Zero seems to be improving as a new leader, Panthy invites him to lunch, which really pisses off Kyrell, since Zero left her with all the paperwork. When Zero gets back to their room, Kyrell throws him out, angry that he would rather be flirting than perform his royal duties. Still trying to escape to the top deck, Farfan and Esther decide to hide in a big pot. Unfortunately for them, it's full of hot broth and vegetables for the animals to have for their lunch. And unfortunately for the animals, they're physically repulsed to discover that the soup they just had for lunch had a pair of grasswompers sitting in it. Dagnino sends one of his henchmen after the grasswompers, with the intent to capture Zero and eat them later, but Farfan and Esther escape him. Meanwhile, Zero's having a bit of a crisis about his relationship with Kyrell.
All she does all day is scold me. Whether I've done this, whether or not I've done something else.
Kyrell just wants you to be okay. You just have to give her time.
I'd like to give her more time, but she's like my shadow.
Have you ever worried about your shadow? No.
Because you are sure that no matter what happens, it will never leave you.
Do you think that Kyrell...
You should just listen to your heart.
Sometimes I think that Kyrell is the woman for me, but Panty's so sophisticated and so much fun. And when I'm near Panty, my heart beats so loud that
it doesn't let you listen.
I suppose this scene is okay. I see what they're trying to do at the very least. Although in all previous scenes between Zero and Kyrell, he's always ditched her. And I doubt there's actually been enough time for him to really change his mind about her being attractive. This just kind of comes out of nowhere, you know? Back with the two mainlanders. Although they've escaped the gang of predators, they've landed themselves in another heap of trouble. Quite literally. The manure is delivered to the top deck, where no one and his family will sweep it away into the ocean. When they discover Esther and Farfan amongst the crap, however, they're convinced that a pair of animals have escaped and a chase begins.
I don't know about you, but tonight I want to eat shepherd's pie!
Okay, let's imagine she's never seen these animals before, and thus wouldn't be able to recognize them. She is so desperate for something other than fish that she's willing to eat these two even though they were buried under mounds of crap. Then there's the fact that the family would eventually learn that these two are actually humans when they tried to skin them. Yeah, it's kinda messed up when you think about it. Too bad the actor's terrible delivery kills any tension that line may have had. The chase eventually causes Noah and the mainlanders to fall down the open shaft, supposedly to their deaths. Or so Noah's family believes. When one of the sons goes down the shaft to try and find Noah, he retreats due to the roaring of a constipated hippo, and assumes that it's too dangerous to explore below deck. Noah is perfectly fine, of course. However, Farfan and Esther knock him out, with the intention of getting back to the top deck and taking over the ship for themselves. Yeah, because 2 against 7 is totally a fight in their favor. Farfan's convinced that with Noah out of the way, there's nothing to worry about. That is, until he remembers about Dagnino, who he just tore a chunk of fur from. Okay, I'm going to assume Dagnino doesn't care that that hide was obviously fake. He'll still work for his plan.
Here, wipe it off.
Thank you.
He ate it. He ripped open its belly and then he ate it right in front of me and then...
Me? What are you saying? What's the matter with you? Have you gone crazy?
You murderer! You assassin! He ate it! He ate the defenseless grasshopper!
Is this a joke?
Excuse me. Excuse me, please. Excuse me.
She's gone completely mad. I only came to... Kyrell, you don't believe that You know that Kyrell, please stop! You have to believe me!
You have dishonored us. You have violated the law that you yourself imposed by eating one of us.
But I didn't eat anybody! You have to believe me!
Do you believe that Zero is an honorable king? So then...
What are you doing? Let go of me!
So everyone go back to your rooms now. It's all over.
Apparently animals can't tell the difference between the smell of tomato sauce and the smell of blood. This is enough evidence for the other animals to turn against Zero, and Dagnino drags him away, locking him up in a makeshift holding cell.
What are you waiting for?
He's saying he's innocent. Maybe we should listen to him, Dagnino.
Wolfgang, please just lock him up.
Yes, all right.
I love how one of the predators who is in on this whole thing wants to be fair. Not sure if it was intentional or not, but it did get a smirk out of me. During their tussle to get control of the rudder, the brothers accidentally break it, and are scolded for trying to seize power for themselves. This even seems to humble the wives. While he's locked up, Zero thinks he's being contacted by his ancestors, when really it's just a recovered Noah talking to the white dove that followed him down the shaft, telling him to find land. The combination of realizing he's been tricked and this misunderstanding causes Zero to decide he's ready to take responsibility. Just as soon as the dove takes off, Zero is broken out of his cell by Kyrell and his other friends. Rather easily, I might add. And they decide to confront Dagnino and his gang. I am guessing Dagnino's hunger has gotten the better of him, since rather than wait for when the arc eventually ends its journey, he's decided to round up as many animals as he can and eat them now. Although I don't really think what he managed to catch would make much of a mouthful.
Akamateko. Akamateko. Akamateko.
Akamate kamate ko. Atenete tanata. Ooh. Ana ichichi. Akati titi la. Aupa. Aupa nekupane titi la.
Insert commentary on how this is a Chanda explaining events like every other reviewer before me because originality is dead. So both sides fight, with Dagnino clearly being more physically powerful than Zero. However, the arc hits some ice flow, and the Predators are trapped with their heads sticking out of a good thick wall. Given how the conflict of Zero being locked up and seemingly out of the way was undone so quickly, I am really less than surprised with how this ended. Given how they were eaten and the sun crashed, the rest of the animals start to panic and try to leave the ark, only for Zero to finally take some initiative.
Come back! There is no place to go, and we don't have any food!
I have a suggestion.
What?
Let's eat the predators!
That's enough! What's happened here is not just by chance. It's the result of people without direction, and without a king. We are not going to eat each other! Alone, even the strongest cannot survive! We will achieve our purpose only if we help each other and respect our differences. That is the only way that we will be saved.
He speaks very well, doesn't he?
He's a champ.
And it only took him to near the end of the movie. Who could have predicted that? By getting organized, the animals managed to free themselves from the ice flow, but not before leaving the animals that can survive in that kind of environment behind. Believing they've reached the new world, Farfan and Esther finally get off the ark, only to be greeted by a pair of hungry polar bears. This couldn't have happened to a nicer pair of characters. Noah also manages to get back onto the main deck and is reunited with his family. And the movie ends with the animals celebrating as they continue to sail off to the new world. So that was Noah's Ark 2007. And it was the shortest sit through. Not because it's bad, even though it kind of is, but because there is so much that doesn't feel like it needs to be here. There are a few scenes that I'm pretty sure meant to have a bigger influence later on, like each of the wives thinking their husband was more deserving of being in charge than Noah, but those scenes come and go so quickly once the ark sets sail, I have to wonder why we even cut back to the family at all. Also, it's not like any of the human characters are on the box cover of this movie. I also didn't care for Farfan and Esther, since unlike Team Rocket or the Peel-Off Gang, they aren't the kind of antagonists who can have fun watch fail to succeed. They're just annoying, greedy, and screaming cowards once they realize the ark is full of animals. Yeah, I get they kind of contribute a bit to the plot, but it doesn't help make up for how annoying they are. And with the exceptions of God, Noah, and his wife, I really don't care for any of the other characters in this movie. They all just come off as flat on one note. Bombay's the flamboyant advisory friend. Dagnino's the obvious villain who wants to take control of the animal kingdom. Panthy's the femme fatale, and blah, 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 blah. I think the only thing that makes the side characters is that wiki page I mentioned earlier, since it tries to convince you so hard that these characters are going to matter, when really they don't. The pig, panda, and mole are meant to be Zero's friends, but we see more direction between Dagnino and his gang than them. There's also this giraffe towards the end that, for whatever reason, has lipstick and a scarf. Since it's almost towards the end of the movie, why make a new character? Why not just have one of the other established animals in her place? The only character who goes through any kind of development is Zero, and I guess that's okay. But I also feel that the scenes where he's an obnoxious tool were cut, so it would be easier to empathize and relate to him. Lastly, the pacing and editing. When we meet the animals, everything feels completely unorganized. And maybe it's me, but this issue feels resolved once the animals actually have to get organized so they can survive. Maybe it was intentional, but I honestly feel that it was more due to sloppy writing and editing. It honestly feels like there were so many scenes with so little in them, just so this film could be padded out to a full hour. After 20 minutes, I really wanted this movie to be over. I was that bored. And like I said earlier, all those cutscenes really hurt the movie in a big way. Well, all the cutscenes with Zero anyway. I've been recording this for 3 days, and I'm just glad to be done. This is Night I Die saying thanks for watching, and please share your thoughts with me.